Somewhere in the world right now, a couple is playing Every Breath You Take at their wedding. They chose it because it sounds like devotion, like a promise, like someone who will always be there, watching over the person they love. When fans have told Sting this, when they've approached him and said his song was the one playing when they walked down the aisle, his response has never changed. He looks at them and says two words, "Well, good luck." Because Sting knows something those couples don't. He wrote Every Breath You Take in the middle of the night at a desk in Jamaica while his marriage was falling apart. He called it a nasty little song, really rather evil, a song about jealousy, surveillance, and control, not a love song. A warning, this is what it actually means. Sting has never been ambiguous about what he wrote. In interview after interview across 4 decades, he has described Every Breath You Take in terms that should make any couple rethink their playlist. He called it sinister and ugly. He said it was about jealousy and ownership. He described the narrator as a man consumed by the need to monitor and possess another person, not love them. "I think the song is very, very sinister," he said, "and people have actually misinterpreted it as being a gentle little love song when it's quite the opposite. I was thinking of Big Brother, surveillance and control." Even Stuart Copeland, the drummer who played on the record, admitted he didn't understand what the song was really about until after it was released. The words were always there. Every breath, every move, every bond, every step, every vow. I'll be watching you. Not a promise, a threat. It was late 1992. Sting's marriage was in ruins. His wife, Irish actress Frances Tomelty, had discovered that he was having an affair with her best friend, a woman named Trudy Styler, who lived next door. The scandal was public, painful, and complete. Sting fled to Jamaica. He checked into a private estate called Goldeneye, a sprawling property on the north coast of the island, overlooking the Caribbean. It was not chosen at random. Goldeneye was where Ian Fleming had lived and worked for decades. Every James Bond novel ever written had been written in that house, at that desk. Sting sat down at the same desk. In the middle of the night, unable to sleep, he began to write a song about watching someone, about not being able to let go, about the obsessive, suffocating grip of jealousy dressed up to look like love. At the desk of the world's most famous spy, Sting wrote one of music's most sinister songs. The personal story behind the song is as dark as the song itself. Frances Tomelty was Sting's first wife. They had been together since the mid-70s. She was talented, respected, and considered one of his closest companions through the early years of the police's rise. Trudy Styler was Tomelty's best friend. She and Sting had been neighbors in Bayswater, London, living side by side, their lives intertwined. The affair between Sting and Styler destroyed both friendships simultaneously. Tomelty lost her husband and her closest friend at the same moment. The fallout was, by any measure, brutal. Sting later acknowledged the destruction he caused. He and Trudy Styler eventually married in 1992 and are together to this day. But in 1982, sitting alone in Jamaica with the wreckage of his personal life behind him, all he had was a piano and a pen, and the feeling of being watched, or of watching someone that he couldn't shake. When Sting brought the song to the band, it was almost unrecognizable. The demo was just his vocal over a Hammond organ, a melody with no shape, no identity. Producer Hugh Padgham later said, "It sounded more like a Billy Preston record than The Police." Nobody in the room knew what to do with it. Sting turned to guitarist Andy Summers with a simple instruction: go and make it your own. Summers went into the live area alone. He sat with the chord sequence, thought about it, and began playing an arpeggiated guitar figure. Not the obvious choice, not the comfortable choice. He drew on classical influences, on the harmonic language of Bela Bartok. He recorded it in one take. When he finished, Sting, Padgham, and Copeland all stood up and applauded. Summers later described the moment with characteristic bluntness. "Without that guitar part, there's no song. That song was going in the trash until I played on it." The riff that would circle the globe had taken one take, and it would define Andy Sue. The album Synchronicity was recorded at AIAR Studios on the island of Montserrat, a facility owned by producer George Martin, set in the Caribbean. It should have been paradise. It was not paradise. The three members of The Police recorded in separate rooms. Sting worked in the control room. Andy Summers was set up in the live area. Stuart Copeland recorded his drums in the dining room of a nearby house. They had been separated not just by geography, but by years of accumulated resentment. Producer Hugh Padgham has spoken candidly about the sessions. There were arguments, there were physical altercations. Management had to intervene multiple times to stop the recording from collapsing entirely. At one point, after 10 full days of work, there was nothing on tape that anyone considered usable. The band that wrote Every Breath You Take, a song about surveillance, control, and suffocating closeness, could barely stand to be in the same room. The most documented conflict during the sessions was between Sting and Stuart Copeland, a tension that had been building for years and finally broke open in Montserrat. Sting wanted the drums on Every Breath You Take to be minimal, simple, controlled. Copeland wanted to express himself, to add color and complexity. He was one of the most inventive drummers of his generation, and he did not enjoy being told to play less. At one point, Copeland added a hi-hat overdub he was proud of. Sting heard it and said it was, in his exact words, "fucking awful." The phrase has been repeated in interviews ever since. The final drum track on the record was not a single live performance. It was constructed piece by piece. Kick drum, snare, hi-hat, and toms recorded in controlled, separate passes. Even the kick drum was supplemented by an electronic drum box. Two men, one of the greatest rhythm sections of the rock era, recording a song about watching and being watched, unable to look each other in thought. Every Breath You Take was released on May 20th, 1983. It reached #1 in the United States and held that position for 8 weeks, more weeks at the top than any other song that year. It outlasted Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, which had spent 7 weeks at #1. At the 1984 Grammy Awards, it won Song of the Year. The Police were in Australia on tour when the announcement was made. Sting was reportedly poolside, celebrating with Willie Nelson. Bob Dylan accepted the award on their behalf. The song also won Best Pop Performance by a duo or group. It had beaten everything. It had beaten Billie Jean. It had beaten the most commercially dominant album of the decade. And it would keep winning long after the charts had moved on. In 2019, BMI, the organization that tracks radio airplay for American music, made an announcement. Every Breath You Take had surpassed 15 million radio airplays. It had officially become the most performed song in the history of American radio, overtaking You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling by the Righteous Brothers, which had held the record for 22 years. One song, 40 years of unbroken rotation, more than any other piece of music ever recorded. Sting has estimated that Every Breath You Take accounts for between a quarter and a third of his total lifetime music income. A single 4-minute recording has generated more money than most artists earn across their entire catalogs. In 2022, he sold his entire songwriting catalog to Universal Music Publishing Group. Estimated sale price? $250 million. Every Breath You Take was considered the crown jewel of the deal. In 1997, a rapper released a tribute song for a friend who had been murdered. The song used a slowed-down sample of Every Breath You Take. The guitar riff, the melody, the entire sonic identity of the record. Without asking for permission first, it went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 11 weeks. It won a Grammy. Only after the release did anyone contact Sting to seek permission. The legal settlement gave him 100% of the publishing royalties. Andy Summers, whose guitar riff was the foundation of the sample, received nothing because he had no songwriting credit on the original recording. Sting later said he put a couple of kids through college with the proceeds. Elton John had reportedly told him, when he first heard about the situation, that it would make him a millionaire twice over. It did. For 40 years, Andy Summers said nothing publicly about the guitar riff. He gave interviews, he acknowledged his contribution, but he never sued. In September 2000, he and Stuart Copeland filed a lawsuit against Sting in London High Court. The claim that Summers' guitar work and Copeland's drumming on Every Breath You Take were creative contributions substantial enough to warrant songwriting credit, and therefore a share of the song's enormous earnings. Decades of radio play, the Puff Daddy sample, the catalog sale, $250 million of value, built in no small part on a guitar riff recorded in a single take by a man who never saw a penny of it. Sting quietly paid them $800,000. Summers and Copeland's lawyers called it a historic underpayment. The case is ongoing. The song about watching and controlling, about ownership, is now the subject of a legal battle over who actually owns it. Every Breath You Take is still playing at weddings. It is playing at funerals. It played in the snowball scene of Stranger Things, where a generation of teenagers heard it for the first time and thought it was the most romantic song ever written. The YouTube video has crossed 1 billion views, the most performed song in American radio history, a Grammy winner, the crown jewel of a $250 million catalog. And Sting still gives the same answer when someone tells him they played it at their wedding. He looks at them. Well, good luck, because he knows what he wrote. He wrote it at a spy's desk in Jamaica, in the middle of the night, while his marriage was ending. He wrote it about jealousy and surveillance and the suffocating weight of someone who will never let you go. He wrote it as a warning. The rest of us just heard a love song.